All right, college football and stuff. Here it is, week 9 of the college football season. A nice Halloween weekend for some football games. I'm going to be going over the SEC and the Big 12 games in this video. All right, starting off with the SEC on Saturday, we have Georgia at Kentucky, 12 o'clock on the SEC network. Georgia, a 14.5-point favorite, which is a lot of points, especially Kentucky is a good defensive team. Now, they're coming off a really bad loss against Missouri. Kentucky was absolutely terrible on offense in that game. I think they had 2 third down conversions the entire game, had something like 20 total plays in that game. Couldn't get anything going on offense. Georgia has a really good defense, an especially good run defense. I think it's going to be difficult for Kentucky to score points and get anything going in this game. I would like this a lot more if it was just under 2 touchdowns instead of just over. I think Georgia is going to be able to win this game fairly easily, but I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game, but I can definitely see Georgia getting ahead by 2 touchdowns and then, or scoring a few touchdowns over the course of the game and just Kentucky not being able to do anything at all. So I'm going to take Georgia minus those 14.5. Again, would like this a lot more, just under 2 touchdowns, but I could easily see Georgia winning by 17 to 20, 21 points, somewhere in that range. Next up, LSU at Auburn, 3:30 on CBS. Now, this was a tough game for me to pick. LSU, a 2.5-point favorite. I'm an Auburn fan. I like Auburn. Auburn has not played great this season. Did just enough last week at Ole Miss to come out with a win. The defense isn't at the level that it has been these past few years, and the offense is still struggling. And then at the end of that Ole Miss game, a big injury. One of Auburn's starting offensive linemen, the right guard, is out for the season. That could be a huge issue. Auburn was already struggling on the offensive line. It was finally starting to seem like they were getting some consistency there and some good play. So that, I think, is a big issue for Auburn in this game, especially because I think the strength of LSU is the pass rush and the ability to disrupt at the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to be an issue for Auburn in this game. Now, again, with Auburn, I feel like you never really know what you're going to get. Auburn could win this game outright, and I think if Auburn wins, it's a fairly decisive win. Or, well, I think if Auburn wins, it's a close game. I think if LSU wins, it's a big win. I think they win by at least a touchdown if they win. So that's where I think you should be on picking this game. I don't think there's really any chance LSU wins but doesn't cover this. If LSU wins, I think they cover easily. So I am back and forth on this game. LSU coming off of a nice win last week against South Carolina, a really good offensive performance there, but of course that was the first time anyone had seen that quarterback. Sometimes if you don't have film on someone, it's a lot easier for you to get offensive points, and then once there's some film out there, it sort of becomes easier and easier to shut that down. Man, I took Auburn to not cover last week, and they did. I took them to cover 2 weeks ago, and they lost. I'm going to take LSU minus the 2.5. I think those offensive line issues for Auburn and the defensive pressure that LSU is going to be getting is to be just a little bit too much for Auburn. I think it'll be a good game for the first half at least. I see LSU probably getting a late score, forcing Auburn into some passing situations, and Auburn not being able to protect well enough to make the comeback in this game. So yeah, I'm taking LSU minus those 2.5. Next up, Ole Miss at Vanderbilt, 4 o'clock on the SEC network. Ole Miss, a 17-point favorite, and Vanderbilt, not a good team. Has played essentially one good game, the game against Texas A&M, and otherwise has been blown out in every game. I think they'll be able to score some points here, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Ole Miss is going to put up as many points as they want. I think Ole Miss minus the 17 is an easy cover there. All right, next up, Mississippi State at Alabama, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Alabama, a 31.5-point favorite. This was tough for me again because Alabama has shown that teams that can throw the ball around on them may be able to have some success, but Alabama is a good team this year. Elite offensively, not an elite defensive team, but I think that's going to be just fine for them, at least in the regular season. We'll see if that comes to be an issue for them in the postseason, where I am pretty confident that they are going to be going to the playoffs. I could see the defensive issues against a team that's a little bit just probably not better on offense, but just a little bit better than them on defense. Maybe at Ohio State, maybe at Clemson. These defensive issues becoming a problem for Alabama. But I'm going to take Alabama to cover in this game. I don't think Mississippi State has the defense to stop Alabama at all. And I think Mississippi State has enough behind-the-scenes issues going on right now that that they are going to struggle in this game. So yeah, I'm taking Alabama minus that 31.5. Then we have Arkansas at Texas A&M, 7:30 on the SEC network. Texas A&M, a 12.5-point favorite here, and I think that's a little bit low. Arkansas is a lot better than I think anyone thought that they would be this season. But Texas A&M has played well. They've played better and better since that first game against Vanderbilt, where they couldn't really get anything going. I think it's at Texas A&M. I think Arkansas is good, but I don't think they're good enough to get a win here. I think anything under 2 touchdowns is a pretty easy cover for Texas A&M. So at 12.5, I think that's just the right spot. Give me Texas A&M minus those 12.5. Last up, Missouri at Florida, 7:30 on the SEC alternate channel. Missouri, of course, had a nice win over Kentucky last week, but I think some of those stats are a little bit misleading. Now, it was a good win for them. I'm not going to take that away from them, but they scored 20 points with 400 yards of offense, but they did that on almost 100 total plays. And like 40 minutes of possession, that was a completely one-sided game as far as number of plays and time of possession, because Kentucky could not move the ball at all on offense. Now, Missouri had no explosive plays in that game, possessed the ball for a really long time, had a bunch of long drives that didn't result in any points. That's how they put up 400 yards but only scored 20 points. I think Florida is a bad matchup for them. Florida is going to be able to score points. I think Florida scores 40 to 50 points just because they have that kind of offense. And I don't think Missouri is going to be able to put up enough. Now, Kentucky has a much better defense than Florida does, but I don't think it's going to matter in this game. Florida is going to score enough points to get away with it. I can see this being a 50-30 type game, or 45-28, something like that. I think Florida easily wins by 2 touchdowns. I can see them winning by 3 touchdowns in this game. So yeah, anything under 2 touchdowns I think is a good number for Florida here. So yeah, Florida minus those 13.5. I'm taking it. All right, moving on to the Big 12. Starting off, we have Kansas State at West Virginia, 12 o'clock on ESPN2. West Virginia, a 3.5-point favorite, and according to ESPN's FBI, Kansas State should be the favorite. Now, I think Kansas State has played better and better. Again, I think West Virginia is a decent team. I think this is going to be a good game. I really think you could make an argument either way on this spread. It's just over a field goal, though. I like Kansas State. Give me Kansas State plus those 3.5. I could see West Virginia winning this by a field goal, though, but just over a field goal. Give me Kansas State plus the 3.5. Then we have Iowa State at Kansas, 12 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Iowa State, a 27.5-point favorite here. Kansas has been getting blown out, was expecting a little bit more from this team at this point. I really thought Les Miles would be able to get them at least some closer games, if not some wins, but it hasn't happened yet. I think Iowa State is the better team. I think we continue along with this trend of Kansas getting blown away. Give me Iowa State minus those 27.5. TCU at Baylor, 3:30 on ESPN2. TCU, a 2.5-point favorite. And again, we have a difference between the spread favorite and ESPN's FPI favorite. ESPN thinks that Baylor should win this game. And of course, I mean, a 2.5-point spread is almost nothing. I am going to take TCU in this. I might regret that. I picked them to keep it close with Oklahoma, and they couldn't do it. But, I mean, I don't know. I think this will be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm taking TCU minus the 2.5. It's under a field goal. I like TCU more, so that's my reasoning there, I guess. But I would definitely hear an argument about why Baylor should win that game, but I'm taking TCU. Okay, Texas at Oklahoma State, 4 o'clock on Fox. Oklahoma State, a 3.5-point favorite, and it is a trend here in the Big 12. ESPN's FBI has Texas as a very slight favorite in this game. I am liking Oklahoma State, though. I mean, Texas did well for me. I picked them to cover against Baylor, and they did it. But yeah, this is a small spread. I like Oklahoma State's offense. They've got a decent enough defense. They've been holding people pretty well. Just over a field goal, though. I am going to take Texas plus the points here. Texas has played a bunch of close games. I think as long as this doesn't go to overtime, in which case you can throw all that out the window, I think if Texas loses, they lose by about a field goal. So I think that 3.5 is just a tiny bit too much. I think Texas has a chance to win this. Give me Texas plus the 3.5. Okay, last up we have Oklahoma at Texas Tech, 8 o'clock on Fox. Oklahoma, a 14-point favorite. And Oh, this was another. There's some tough games to pick here because Texas Tech has played a bunch of people really close. Went to overtime with Texas. Have played quite a few close games. I think Oklahoma's starting to get it together, though. I don't think it's going to matter because I don't think you're going to see the Big 12 in a playoff spot. I think the Big 10 coming back has sort of ruined any hope of that. But I think Oklahoma goes out. I think they get a decent win here. I'm going to take Oklahoma minus those 14 points. I just don't think Texas Tech has quite enough. I think they played their best game against Texas, and they lost in overtime. So that's it for the Big 12 and the SEC this week. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button. I really appreciate it. If you want to keep seeing these, I make them every week. Subscribe to the channel, and they'll show up in your subscription feed. I'm going to keep doing these the rest of the season. I'm going to pick every single FBS game and give my pick against the spread. So that's it for this week, and I'll see you in the next video.